All right, everybody, we are back again for another episode of the Coach's Compass. Again, don't know what episode it is because we just continue to run with this thing and continue to bring on cool guests each and every time so you guys can continue to learn from some of the best in the game from all different sports and all different walks of life. So it's your boy, Coach Coop, reporting live all the way over here from Europe. My boy, Jay, from Europe, too. Another special guest with us today. Like I said, Coach Harry out of the UK. He is the owner of Train Wright Performance. That's also with his brother Charlie, so can't give him all the credit. But him and Coach Charlie are running Train Wright Performance. He is currently a semi-professional rugby player. He is a rugby specialist, S&C coach, sports rehabilitation, and online training platform that is booming out there in the UK. So if you have the opportunity to check that out, go ahead, Harry. But Harry, what is good, dog? Welcome on the Coach's Compass, and it's a pleasure to have you here, bro.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Looking forward to just talking for the next hour. Really, I did a podcast like yesterday, and I just actually love just chatting to like-minded coaches and just talking. It can be about S&C, it can be about business, it could be about any kind of walk of life. I just like talking to people that have got the same kind of interests, I guess. Yeah, looking forward to being on, guys.
For sure, man. Especially because everybody that gets into this coaching side of things, there's more to it. It's not just, writing up a program, it's building up relationships, it's doing business, it's learning from one another. So on top of that, Harry, what are you doing in this industry that's helping you and Train Wright Performance be successful and be different than the others out there?
I think it's constantly evolving. I think like the main thing is, if you were to ask me what I programmed and coached 2 years ago compared to today, I think it would look slightly different. And I think if you're not changing and evolving, you will get left behind. And so I think actually speaking to coaches, learning off people, asking, don't be afraid to ask things and ask questions. If there's something that you see, for example, on Instagram or something where you're learning a learning platform, you need to ask those questions, understand the why. So I think you can take a lot from different coaches and different people. Like, for example, you guys are involved in American football. There's going to be certain nuances that you guys train that's going to be a little bit different to rugby. However, actually, what can I take that is going to translate to my coaching philosophy and that is going to help my athletes? And I think as soon as you get kind of stuck in the same cycle, that's when you kind of get left behind. You've got to constantly think outside the box a little bit. Obviously, you're going to have your main pillars, but trying to evolve your whole kind of coaching philosophy as you go, I think is a real key thing. I'm constantly trying to not overdo it, but, get feedback, learn from other coaches, do as much kind of CPD that I can do, whether that's listen to a podcast, whether that's doing an online course. I think I'm always trying to put aside at least an hour or two a week while I'm doing that.
So, obviously you played the sport of rugby. Now, you guys consider us the soft rugby players, because we got pads on and everything like that, which I don't discredit at all, because if I were to probably go out there and play rugby, it probably wouldn't last long for me because I'm trying to run away from everybody because getting hit in the face just ain't my thing. But what led you down the field of being a rugby specialist and an S&C coach and got you to the point that you're at now? Because it's hard to balance with being still playing, right? Being semi-pro, and then your brother also being a former professional. Like, how did you guys get into the S&C field and now become rugby specialists?
Yeah, it's an interesting. I've always played rugby. I've always played rugby just at a half decent level, never like amazing. Charlie, my younger brother, he was always the one that was off representing England, and
Dang, you let younger brother beat you out, bro.
Yeah, no, to be fair, always used to start in the bedroom, mate. Me and him were always fighting who could make each other cry first. I think that's how we got into like contact sport, really. But yeah, playing rugby from a young age all the way up through, and I went to Cardiff Met, studied S&C and sports rehab, and while I was doing that, Charlie was signed, so he was playing professional rugby, but had been through like 3 or 4 shoulder operations in that time, in his first couple of years, so he had it rough. So while he was doing that, while he was in rehab, he was also studying sports science at Exeter Uni. So we went to uni, did our degrees. He was still signed a couple of years after. When I graduated, I managed to actually get a job at Chiefs where he was playing or rehabbing. So I've always wanted to work in rugby in some aspect. In S&C, I was always a keen gymmer. As a youngster, always like following like the YouTubes, the Hodge twins, and all that kind of thing, Steve Cook, etc. Just following training, whether it's back buys, chest and tries, and then I actually started to put a little bit of education on it and started to apply that into real world setting and professional sport, whilst still trying to play myself. And then obviously COVID hit and stuff, so that was actually quite a nice break because I was probably a little bit rugbyed out. My day-to-day job was in rugby, in the rugby environment, in the gym, working with rugby players. And then my weekend was me playing. So everything was just rugby, rugby, rugby. And actually, COVID didn't come at too bad a time because I thought I was actually getting a little bit bored of it. So it was actually quite refreshing to have a little bit of time out of rugby and actually go back into just really focusing on the coaching side of things. But yeah, it's kind of, working in pro sport for 5 years, and the stepping stone into higher paid roles is hard, few and far between to try and get where you want to be, from a self-development point of view as well. So actually I was thinking outside the box, how can I make this work? How can I still work with rugby players, but kind of be my own boss and get paid better? And that's how I kind of grew Train Wright Performance and niched down to helping rugby players and giving them the tools that the pros get. Because I think if you're an athlete, most athletes are competitive and want to develop, don't they? So, they probably need the same level of attention to detail that the pros get in their own training when they go into their leisure gym or just their local gym down the road. Actually, can we give them the right amount of dosage to start, reflecting that training on the pitch and performing well?
So then what were the steps? Because you say you go from playing a little bit, your brother's still playing pro, you're going into studying, and then you get a job with a professional team, and then you kind of see that the pay isn't as great, or you want more time, because you're also playing during that time that you're still training these professional guys, and then you start your own thing. What was it like to kind of get into the professional field of working with professional guys, and then like realizing or seeing that you want to branch off and kind of do your own thing? Like, how did you navigate that to even get an opportunity with a professional team?
There was a bit of a transition. There's a bit of a transition period from working from professional sport and then going into more self-employed. But getting into professional team is one of those things. I hadn't actually graduated. I'd literally just handed in my dissertation. A job role came up. I remember my dis mentor was like, "Look, apply for this job role. It's a great experience if you get an interview, because then your next interviews that come, you'll find them a lot easier." And I just thought, right, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. And yeah, I managed to actually get the job there and then, which was obviously really handy. But again, if I hadn't have put my hand up and gone, right, I'm just going to go for it from an experience point of view, I wouldn't be in this situation, I doubt. So yeah, it was one of those things that you just got to go for it and kind of set your ego aside and just lay all your cards out and say, look, this is me. If you want me, take me. If you don't, don't. But yeah, then from working in S&C and then transitioning into like more of the online bespoke space, you take a lot from coaching professional athletes and working with athletes that want to be professional, and actually a lot of your principles that you learn and you're doing in your coaching and your programming do translate to then coaching online and programming online and working out what methods work, what don't, and how you can kind of balance that with someone that's working a full-time job, got a family, and then playing rugby on the weekends. It's all those kind of things to take into account. But again, I juggled the two for 18 months. So I was still working at Exeter Chiefs, and then I was doing the online coaching, and I juggled the two for probably 12 to 18 months. And then kind of enough was enough. I was like, actually, if I don't drop one's going to take a real hit. So it was a case of, right, what's my future look like? Actually, I think Train Wright's probably got the bigger future here, and that's what I'm really enjoying at the moment. And both went hand in hand for a long time and really helped, because I think you start to build a bit of an authority and a bit of an appeal because you're working in pro sport. So those rugby players that aren't in pro sport tend to kind of look to you for advice, which definitely helped to where I am now.
So then first off, what are some of the principles, philosophies, and like methodologies that like Train Wright Performance has? And then also, what is that, the dynamic between two brothers working together, running a company? Because I remember talking a little bit off camera before, you said that a lot of your time is spent online now, and some of your time, your brother was more like in person. How's that dynamic between you two?
To be fair, it's changed in the last 4 weeks because Chai's just had a little baby. So he's now a dad. But what did happen, so I take on a lot of the online coaching, and I work now in person 5 hours a week with just one-to-one athletes. And they're actually mainly rehab athletes that are kind of returning to full performance. And then the rest of the people are online clients from all over, really. But those people that I do work in person with, they're also on the online system. So it's almost a case of checking in with them once a week, making sure they're along the right lines, they're progressing how we want to. And actually, when I see them once a week, I've then got a real good snapshot of where we need to take the program next. So basically, from a business point of view, I do all the online stuff, the social media. Charlie chips in with regards to the emails, the marketing, that kind of thing. And maybe he might create a little bit of content, but I do most of that as well. But Char's got he's got his own kind of section of online clients as well. So he's got a small group of online clients, and he works them in person as well. So yeah, we've both got, it's funny, I was speaking to someone before this actually and said, it's funny, like you go from coaching when you're on the gym floor, I don't know, 25 hours a week, and then you come into this online space and actually you feel a bit rusty when you go back in the gym. So I've always made sure that I'm doing at least 5 hours a week of coaching and keeping that coaching hat on, because I think that actually really helps from an online coaching point of view as well, and vice versa. Because I think being able to coach online actually develops your programming ability and, seeing what works well, use ourselves as guinea pigs. But I think if you're not coaching in person, I do think it would affect other areas of being able to coach online and communicate. I think that's a big thing. I think the entry level for the fitness industry nowadays is quite easy. You can go and do a course, and you can call yourself an online coach, and then you've actually never coached someone in person, and you're making money, and they don't actually know how to coach. So I think it's a key skill to have, being able to build a rapport in person, coach in person, develop your coaching eye. Those are key aspects that I think are really, really important.
How did you go about, kind of branching everything off to be online? Because I mean, we talk about COVID times, right? Everybody was kind of searching to become an online coach. They were using YouTube, they're using TikTok, Instagram Live, all these things, like post their workouts and everything and get people to sign up for their programs and whatnot. But it is also very tedious, right? There's a lot of tedious work that goes into it. How are you using the online platform to get, feedback from your clients too? Because I mean, obviously there's things that they have to send back to you for you to break down and look over, and especially when you're doing rugby specialist stuff. I know how it is with football. We have combine training things, and you're asking people to send them videos, and sometimes people miss out and don't send it back. What has it been like to kind of set up everything online, and how did that process go for you?
A lot of admin, if I'm totally honest. A lot of admin. I've actually just moved platforms as well, which cause so much admin, but it's worthwhile. Just moved from True Coach to a platform called Fitter, which for the long run for me is going to help massively, because I've got unlimited amount of spaces on there. Just setting up programming and being able to write a program online and actually making sure that your client can see it and it looks clean and they understand it. And when you're in a gym on a whiteboard, you can just write up sets and reps, and then you can talk to them straight away about, I actually want you to do a 3-second eccentric on that one. You don't need to write that up on the board, because you can communicate that with your athlete. Whereas when you're online, you need to write your step-by-step kind of instructions for each exercise. So it's finding a process there, and it definitely helps your programming point of view, because you're having to repeat those and making sure that your prescription is either developing, or for that certain individual you need to pull back on certain things. So yeah, it's getting it. And I started off with just programming on sort of Google Sheets. That's how I started, because that's what I used to do with working in pro, and you send the boys the programs on Google Sheets, follow that. However, then it becomes tedious, because if you do it online and the people haven't got the videos to what the exercises are, and then they're asking questions, it's just causing more admin time. So it was then finding that systemized approach to go, right, what software can I use to make sure that the athletes are all accountable? They know what they're doing. They don't need a handheld through every step of the way, because actually what it says in the app, they should be able to understand. They've got videos there. They've got access to look at their history from previous weeks. They can upload videos for me to look at, for them to look at. they need feedback on stuff, they can share performance markers straight away. So right now, probably I'm a lot further ahead than what I was last year. So yeah, constantly evolving, and getting the admin side of things is long for coaches that like to coach. I'm not great on tech, to be honest, so it's taken a little while. I think I've been doing online stuff now nearly years, so I'm slowly getting better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that online stuff can be tricky. I mean, even we struggle with technology still sometimes. Not as much as the coaches a little bit older than us, but I look back in the day when we were all using Excel spreadsheets, or even just like a notebook. You know what I mean? As you wrote all the workouts in, and you kind of take a picture of it and send it to people. But now, like, people actually need the videos of things to actually understand, because everybody's verbiage is a little bit different too. Like, you might call one exercise one thing, I might call it another thing.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get it across to an athlete, and they're just like, they're lost. Especially guys that, professional guys, even semi-professional guys, they have limited time of attention. As we all know, they want it straightforward to what it is. And like, if I need to see a video, I need to see a video. But that leads me to, like, being online. How has it helped business? Like, do you think, as being a rugby specialist too, how does it help business grow for you?
I think pretty positively, to be honest. From an online point of view, I think the sky's the limit with regards to how many people that you can. Obviously, depends how many hours you got in the day, but if you can systemize an approach and a product, you can reach a lot of rugby players. And I think from a content point of view, me niching down to rugby was the best thing I did. I was very much in the early part just trying to impress coaches, and actually coaches who look at my Instagram aren't necessarily going to be my customers. So actually, how can I turn my content and page into being really appealing for these viewers to then turn them into customers, and how much they're going to engage? As soon as they start to engage, right, I found something there that people are liking. If they continually start to like stuff, engage with content, then hopefully they're going to come down that funnel and be a customer one day. And then, yeah, like you say, just brought out more of a group programming side of things. So one-to-one coaching, you kind of can limit yourself to how many people you work with, because there's only so many one-to-one clients you can work with whilst trying to provide a really good product. And actually, a lot of people can't afford one-to-one coaching, because if you're going to start to put your prices up, with the way the world's going, you're going to need to start putting your prices up. How can I offer something at a more of an affordable rate? So, that program now is kind of unlimited to numbers, and, helping rugby players with regards to their training. A lot of it comes down to, a lot of people know what they're doing in the gym. It's more about how they're doing it, how much of it they're doing, and where they're doing it in their week. I think that's probably where people come unstuck. They might be doing all the right things in the week. However, they might be doing it on the wrong days compared to when they're training, or they might be doing way too much of certain exercises, and then they're wondering why they're so sore. I think it's just giving those like little nuances and making sure that they've got the right dosages in the week to where they get the real kind of bang for their buck.
So what goes into being a rugby specialist, right? Because, I mean, you're talking to guys that are playing football, and obviously the sports have some similarities, but you talk to some of our American viewers, we don't have any clue on what rugby really, like. Yeah, America's starting to get into rugby, and it's starting to become a thing over there, but we don't really, I wouldn't even say we really, like, it's not something we pick up and just play in at PE or anything.
Yeah.
So what goes into being a rugby specialist, and how would you say the training is different? And how would you say it's the same as American football in ways that you've seen?
I think, like, just going back to like the rugby specialist side of things, I think you as a coach have got to understand the sport inside and out, and also be able to see the sport from the coach's side of things and the athlete side of things as well. I think working in rugby in a professional environment as an S&C coach, you need to be able to talk to the backs or the forwards coach and be able to see what they're seeing and understand what they want to get out of a session, and what the S&C want to get out of the session. Of the S&C are looking probably at on-feet load, how many sprints they're doing during their actual rugby skill session, how long are they out on the pitch for, what's this going to kind of impact. So being able to understand that goes a long way in being able to manage a rugby athlete and making sure that their performance is always geared towards either a Saturday or geared to their own personal development with regards to where they need to improve. I think differences from rugby to American football, obviously you've talked about it already, but like the protection gear, I think it's probably a little bit more continuous with regards to there's less stop starts, although some players won't always be involved in, the ball could be in play for 3 to 5 minutes at a time without there being any stoppages sometimes. And I tell you what, me knowing that from playing, it is tough because you're constantly in that kind of aerobic, anaerobic energy system. It's constantly going. You don't have the start-stop that you would get in American football. There's probably a lot of different kind of contacts rather than just like massive collisions like you get in American football. I imagine most of the collisions are normally quite big. Person with the ball, person trying to charge down or tackle. Whereas with rugby, you get a lot of the kind of secondaries. You're rucking, you're scrumming, line out, mauling, you're tackling. When you're tackling, your job's not kind of done. You're either trying to get back to your feet. So there's a lot of different external factors in rugby, I would suggest, compared to American football. Now, I'm not too clued in on American football, but from what I've seen, it's a little bit more start-stops and real high outputs of effort over a shorter period of time. Whereas rugby is probably, the first 5 minutes, the contacts are absolutely ridiculous. But as the game starts to go, they will reduce and you'll start to see tackle completion rate drop down in the last 10 compared to like the first 10, for example. Obviously, there's going to be lots of similar aspects with regards to speed, change direction, contact, collisions, and being able to understand all the technical side of things on top of the physical side of things is obviously really, really similar as well, because you can have certain set plays and certain defensive plays, attacking plays.
Nah, yeah, I mean, like I said, I've seen they throw the person up, to catch the ball. And I don't even know what that's called, but I've seen it.
Line out,
and it looks, you gotta have some power to be able to do that, and then trusting the person below you. All right, so there's a lot of different training methods that are going into it. What does an off season look like in rugby?
Off season, probably very individualized, really. A lot of people will either take a couple of weeks off and completely kind of go through a bit of a reset. If you've had a hard season, you're going to want to take a couple of weeks to just chill out, relax, especially if you've played I don't know what the season's like in American football, but our season's normally over kind of 8 months from September through to May. And you can play as many as kind of 30 games. We don't
play that many games.
No, some boys play more, you see. So boys that are playing upwards of sort of 20 games a season, after the season, they're going to need a couple of weeks to just chill, relax, recover, get rid of those kind of bumps and knocks that they've picked up, try and, if they need to, work on their recovery, a bit of sports massage, a bit of physio. And then I really think it's a good time to dive deeper into what aspects of their performance they feel like they could improve. So whether that's speed, whether that's strength, size, power, all of the above, they could have a real kind of specific 6 to 8 week block of that kind of training. And again, it might be really individualized, but if I've got a rugby player that is strong and powerful but lacks that extra 10 yards of pace, I'm probably going to focus on speed throughout that off season whilst trying to keep strength, power and size to where it is. But there may be more of a sole focus on speed or conditioning, for example. You're probably going to be able to gym a few more times because you haven't got the external pressures and knocks and bruises of rugby training and games. Boys may try and increase their gym frequency from maybe 2 sessions a week to 4. I know with a lot of my athletes, I was getting them in the gym 4 times a week and out on the pitch once a week for some speed and conditioning. In the gym, they may be doing a little bit more off-feet conditioning because, again, they haven't got that training stimulus where they are actually working on their fitness levels. We're actually going to need to put a little bit more off-feet conditioning as well to make sure that they're ready for pre-season as well. Obviously, as off-season gets further down the line, you're then thinking about pre-season and the demands of pre-season, they need to be ready to withstand that as well. So making sure that their running load's up 2 to 3 weeks prior to pre-season is really important as well.
I wanted to ask you, because honestly, my education, or I really don't know much about rugby. If you were to throw Coop and I into a rugby team right now, if we had to join a rugby team, what information would you give us on each position with regards to areas of improvement that are probably the most important? For me, for American football, obviously me and Coop would tell you if we had to throw you to an American football team, wide receivers, speed is most important from offensive linemen, hypertrophy, and maximal strength is most important. What would you say for? Because I think I know like a few positions where it's like I've heard of like the prop position, props, and like forwards, and I think some of the positions that kind of sound similar to. But yeah, what advice would you give us?
Yeah, so like props are like your main kind of scrum force. So like they need to be robust. They need to be able to they need to have some weight, first of all. If you're a light prop, when you come up against a 130 kilo prop that's strong and powerful, they're just going to get absolutely bummed basically, unless they can get way too low in the scrum. But making sure that the front row, which is the props, are strong, they're robust, their ankles, shoulders, necks needs to be really bulletproof, because they're going to be going for a lot of load throughout scrum time. Making sure everyone needs some kind of real good aerobic base, because they need to be able to go if they are asked to play for 80 minutes. They need a decent aerobic base so they can last that long, because you'll get some people that can't, and then all of a sudden everything else starts to go downhill from there. So yeah, aerobic base and strength for the props, and then obviously your backs again is going to be very much speed, power based. Actually, what's their weight to strength ratio? It should be fairly up there, and you'd imagine hopefully their body composition's in a really good place as well. From a weight point of view, back three, so like wingers, I don't know if you're too familiar with like wingers and stuff. So they're like they're probably like your wide receiver. So Lewis Rees-Zammit.
Mm-hmm.
What position's he coming in? Do you know, for Kansas Chiefs?
Isn't he a receiver or running back? I'm not sure.
No, but yeah, so he's come over from Wales, and he was a winger. So I think he'll be either wide receiver or running back probably when he comes over to American football. But he's 6 foot. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4", probably around 95 kilos, and he's rapid, to be fair. So like his speed, strength, and power is key. How fast can he run? His top end speed, that's going to be a real important component. Same with our centers, which is just inside of the wingers. Again, everyone needs size, because size times speed equals momentum, and momentum is going to be so important when it comes to collisions and winning collisions in attack and defense. As general as it sounds, everyone needs size, but some good size. They don't want unfunctional size where they're just packing on a load of fat, because fat doesn't fly and it's going to slow you down. So just making sure that they're ready to withstand the demands, and they're strong, they're powerful, they're robust.
With that, like, how hard has it been? So I mean, obviously you came from the professional side, and now you're on your own. How hard has it been to kind of get not only the athletes but also coaches to buy into like that strength and conditioning is such an important factor into helping your athletes become better? Because I mean, if you look back into like when you were playing, how important, like how much emphasis did they put on like actually showing up to the gym and like doing speed training and all this stuff in your off season? And did you have a coach that was helping you during that time?
Yeah, I think it's probably one thing why I'm so kind of passionate about what I'm doing now, is because when I was kind of growing up and looking to progress my rugby, I didn't have these resources, and I didn't think about it. I was left to my own devices, and coaches weren't pushing that side of things. It was very much about just get fitter and get better at rugby. They didn't know the pieces to the puzzle. They just knew the end outcome of where you need to be, but they didn't actually know how to get you from there, or from the start to where they want you to be, if you know what I mean. So that kind of education and resources point of view wasn't just there. I think it's starting to improve in a good way, that coaches know that there needs to be a real good emphasis on S&C, mainly because the coaches at the end of the day, they want their players fit and able to play. Like availability can be your best ability sometimes, and if you keep breaking down, it's probably going to be something to do with your physical development. You're either not strong enough, you're not fit enough, or you're just really injury prone. So you need to be doing stuff outside of your training to make sure that you can match the demand of rugby. Because a lot of the injuries can be avoided. Some of them, obviously, the contact injuries, they can't be. But if they're hamstring tears or calf tears, those are the things that probably could be avoided back along. Do you know what I mean? They might have been doing too much of something, and actually, if they had some proper structure, they'd maybe avoid those annoying injuries. So I think from the pro level all the way down to the amateur level now, I think there's a bigger emphasis on S&C on a whole, because they know, one, they can keep their players fit, but 2, they're going to get a better performance come Saturday or Sunday.
So what are some of the KPIs that you're using to track and show these coaches that like this is where they started at, this is what they're improving on, and how do you know when a player is like ready for preseason and for the season? Like, because I mean, in football, like we have our camp testing stuff that we do, and then you have your conditioning tests that you do. We have max out days and whatnot, which is also like another something I would ask Jay too. Like, what are some things that you guys are tracking, like to know when a guy is ready for the season?
I think like your strength and power markers are great, but they only probably paint a very small picture in regards to where the athlete is overall. Your strength power markers, I think, how quickly can they go from A to B? Your speed, are they quick? I'm lucky with some of my athletes, I use GPS so I can get some live data of how quickly they're going. Or we can look at, right, you film yourself run 20 meters and we'll just find a rough time and how quickly you're covering that 20 meters, for example. So speed, strength and power markers, whether that's squat, bench, chin up, that kind of thing. And then your power work was really easy with like online clients is to either go for jump height or jump distance for a lower body power. And then using, I don't know if you've heard of it, but metric VBT. It's an app that you can dial in, you can film a lift and you can see their peak power on some of their lifts as well. That's a real nice metric to kind of go by as well, and kind of work some percentage lifts off that as well to see where they are. Conditioning side of things, we actually had it last night, the Bronco test. Love it or hate it. It's a real quick, nice snapshot of your kind of aerobic capacity to see where you are from an on-feet fitness point of view, but also off-feet. We love What Bikes, testing 5K time trials, 3-minute max MP, just trying to get max power out for that 3 minutes and see if they can maintain that mean average. And then like your hop test for like your actual robustness or your neck holds. How long can you hold a neck hold for? How many plate hops can you do in 30 seconds left to right? Just to look at general lower body resilience and robustness as well and see if there's any massive deficits. I think you've always got to compare left to right in some aspects to see, especially if they've had past injuries. A lot of those kind of exit tests actually play into the people that are fit to get a snapshot of where they are physically.
What is the Bronco test? Because I think I saw you post something where people were doing an up down and they ran and like a burpee.
So Bronco's no up downs. Luckily, that'd be savage if there was. All but right. It's basically 1.2K of shuttle runs. So you go out to 20, back out to 40, back out to 60, back 5 times with no rest. So you do it as quickly as you can. Max out effort. Yeah, pretty stinking.
How many of those are you running?
Just once. So like, I'm a big believer in some coaches will. The Bronco test is a test. Like I'm sure you guys would agree, but a Bronco is a test for us to kind of underpin and evaluate our programming to go right. We're informed by this score to go. This is what we need to improve on, and this is how we're going to do it now in our training. We're not just going to keep repeating the test because obviously you're going to get better if you keep repeating the test, but actually how relevant is that test in the grand scheme of things? It's not actually going to make you better at rugby. It's just a quick snapshot of where your aerobic base is. So yeah, we use it as a test just once a year, maybe twice, as a kind of a check-in to see where they are.
So you go 20 back, 40 back, 60 back. How many times do you do that?
Shit like that.
5
times.
Yeah.
No
so
rest.
No rest.
What's a good time?
Sub 5. Sub 5 is good time.
Drunk. I ain't doing that.
Yeah, sub 5.
Sub 5.
Listen, I've been running this little mile.
Hold on, so it's 20 back, 40 back, 60 back 5 times in under 5 minutes. Hey, I'll get back at you for episode 2 and let you know how I do. 20, 40. 60.
I mean, which is pretty rapid.
I've been trying to experiment with like some like glycolytic training like every once a week. Like I either do like a mile or like an all out fucking lap. I may have to add that one. I don't know if I'll get 5 done. I may have to work my way into 5.
Actually, I'd probably add that over running the mile, bro. I hate every day that I run this mile, I'm absolutely hating my fucking life. I can't even.
You got to change it up though. You can't just stick to the mile.
I need to, bro, because it's getting draining and I hate it. But hey, what coaches are you kind of taking your stuff from and learning? Like all this information and all this testing and all these different areas. What coaches do you kind of look up to or are mentored by and kind of taking bits and pieces from them implement it into your own game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's having quite a broad taking from a few. A lot of physios, to be honest. A lot are actually physio rehab guys, because I think their understanding of human movement and the body and the anatomy is massive, and how much crossover that has is really good. So there's David Gray Rehab, who is great. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but David Gray Rehab, he does some absolutely excellent stuff. He's got like an online interactive portal as well that you can kind of subscribe to, and there's some really good resources there.
Where's he out of? Ireland?
Ireland, yeah, from Ireland. Yeah, he's Irish, yeah. Alan Murdoch, he was at Bath Rugby. He does, I think he's called Elevate Speed Rehab. He's really good with regards to return to play, speed work in the gym, but also out on the pitch. You got Eric Cressey. Don't know, he's American. Eric Cressey,
Yeah.
I think. I'm a big fan of. Me and Shah have both had quite a few shoulder issues, and luckily come over them, and learnt a lot from Eric Cressey with regards to his whole outlook on shoulder function, how to rehab a shoulder properly for sports where you're required to be in real vulnerable positions. Speedworks training, they're really good with regards to a lot of their speed training. Yeah, do you know what? Instagram's a really good thing with regards to learning off coaches and seeing what they do. Instagram gets a lot of flack, and if I didn't have a business that runs really off Instagram, I probably wouldn't like it that much. I wouldn't go on it, but because my work's on there and that's kind of my shop window, I'm on there a lot, and actually, you can always learn stuff, and it always then leads you down the path of podcasts or online resources. Yeah, it helps. Like your guest you had Sam Portland. I've done his speed work stuff, and a couple of his online courses, which is great. And I think the more you can take from good coaches with real good reputation, the people that you actually resonate with as well, the better. Because you can then just start taking bits and bobs from each other and just starting to build this whole kind of approach that, is your own philosophy, but you're taking ideas from everyone else. I think it's a good way to kind of learn, I think.
No, definitely.
Yeah, I think Instagram gets such flack because everyone's kind of showing the final product. And there's also just some, I mean, if you're smart enough, you should know that like everything on there doesn't need to be believed or isn't like fully true or the full story of whatever you're looking at. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're an athlete out there looking for a coach, like look at what they're doing, but also do your research and talk to their athletes that they've worked with, and if you're a coach, and if you don't like something that another coach is doing, maybe ask them why they were doing it and how they got there and what their philosophy behind things is. I think that's why Instagram gets such bad flack, is because everyone's kind of judging the product of what you put out there, but forgetting that there's so many pieces that lead up to getting to it. And we all do it. Let's be honest. Like you record something that you're going to post, like usually you're taking that best little 5 seconds and then you're putting it together and piecing it there so everybody can see. Because I definitely don't want to be judged on Instagram for the shit that I did bad, because obviously you're trying to be a coach and you're trying to show that everything you do is correct. But I think it also goes into play to say that it's okay to show like things that you've done wrong, especially as a coach. And on online business, like sometimes you got to show that you're a real person, because athletes love that stuff because they don't want to okay, coach does everything right, like he never does anything wrong, like I should send him this video and it's not the perfect rep, like he's gonna just get on to me for this. It's kind of like you kind of can use it as teaching moments too. So I think that's what's great about Instagram, and that's obviously how we found each other. Without Instagram, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly. The kind of networking side of things as well is a great way to develop your coaching philosophy, talk, do the fat on S&C, throw around ideas. You're not always going to agree on certain topics, but that's good. Like you'll probably go full circle and then agree 6 months later because you've actually experienced it yourself. So yeah, that's 100% my take. I think it's good. It's good in small doses, isn't it? And I think it serves a big purpose for us coaches, because I think you can become, if you're in one environment for a long period of time, you can become kind of institutionalized, and you're in this revolving circle, and you're just used to day in, day out, week by week, doing the same thing, and you're not seeing different ways of doing things. And I think actually having a different lens, or having someone else look at your work, or someone look at your athlete, they'll look at them in a totally different way, and they'll see something that I don't see or you don't see, and then you can start talking, and actually you build a massive rationale of why you're doing it, because you're nitpicking. Some of my athletes will hate me because constantly send me videos and I'm like, nah, I just need you to go that little bit to the left, or I need you to just change that angle slightly. I need you to go a little bit deeper, or, I'd rather be like that rather than just turn a blind eye and go, yeah, you're fine.
I mean, you just want the best for them, right? That's the point of going into coaching.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, we would just be, you could be the everyday coach. It's like, all right, yeah, cool, do what you need to do, and you're good. But if you look at 15, 16-year-old Harry, right, what would be your best advice, the words that you would give to 15, 16-year-old Harry from looking at yourself now?
Probably just looking for advice rather than taking it in myself and just thinking that I knew what was best for me. Actually, probably looking for a little bit more advice around training for rugby. Like I said, I think I was just training a little bit naively with regards to what I was doing and following what was out there at that time. Instagram, from an S&C point of view, back then, this was over 10 years ago, wasn't what it is now. There was nothing out there, was there? Trying to probably seek advice and seek professional advice as well. And I think a lot of people, I think it's starting to improve with regards to educational resources. A lot of young lads are looking for professional advice with regards to how they should be training. But I think, probably just knowing what I was doing and what was the actual end goal rather than just walking into the gym and trying to get a pump. Maybe one thing I was glad I did, I had a real big kind of variety of sports that I was doing. I was always playing different sports, which I think helps massively from an athletic point of view. I was playing cricket, football, tennis, athletics, rugby, every sport. I didn't even chanced a little bit of martial arts, a little bit. Didn't just put my toe in and dip back out again. But trying sports and learning ways of different movement always helps. I think that's a big bit of advice. Probably do that for as long as possible, and then you can kind of niche down into rugby a little bit later. I think that actually does help, because I think you see some people that will go just rugby from the age of 10 all the way up to now, and they'll just be burnt out and bored of it. They'll get to off season, they want to play another sport. So I think, having a nice wide variety definitely helps that athletic development for sure.
Yeah,
On the advice side of things, what challenges would you say you're facing now in, I guess, the sports performance world?
Good question. I think from a coaching point of view is trying to educate athletes. Actually, let's just take a step back. You don't need to be training every single day. We need to put a little bit more of an emphasis on how well are you recovering, because a lot of people just want to be doing more, and more isn't always better. So it's trying to find that happy medium of going, actually, what can we get the most out of these certain exercises for the least? Okay, so sometimes less is more. How can we get our biggest bang for the buck, and trying to get them to understand it? Because some people want to be squatting 2 to 3 times a week and they just want to become a powerlifter. And it's trying to educate athletes to go, look, what is your main goal for me, or for coming to me? What's your main goal for coming to me as your coach? Do you want to become this absolute gym monkey and powerlifter, or are you coming to me to improve your sports performance? If you're coming to me to improve your sports performance, then this is what we need to do. If you want to be a gym monkey, that's fine. I can write you a bodybuilding or a powerlifting program, but we're here for sports performance. This is how we're going to kind of do it. But again, you need to listen to them because they've got lots of external factors anyway. So, it's a two-way conversation, but just trying to get them to understand, actually, S&C isn't always about gym. It's actually how are we performing out on the pitch? How can we improve certain aspects? If that makes sense.
At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? How well do you perform? You came to a strength and conditioning coach, yes, because you wanted to get bigger and you wanted to get faster, you wanted to get stronger, but it all comes down to play on how you perform your day of whenever your game, your match, whatever it is that you're doing, how you perform out there. But if we look at past Harry and Train Wright Performance and look towards the future, what is in the future and what are some of those future goals that you guys have lined up that you're working towards now?
Just to kind of build this whole online space and be able to provide a great product for a lot of rugby players. I think we're doing that at the moment, but just to continue to grow, and we've got clients all over the world, and I want to be able to increase that in certain areas. So we're off to Australia in November to go over there. Yeah, going to Australia. Yeah, so hopefully start to kind of delve deeper into the Southern Hemisphere space as well as the Northern Hemisphere back here. So that's the plans to take over, and the sky's the limit, really. I think going back to Jay, your question earlier, like with regards to the struggles, I think a lot of athletes are too impatient, and they're too impatient with programs. And if they're doing the same program for 2 weeks, they get bored. A lot of people will just chop and change programs each week. And actually, if they just stuck to that program, this program could be the worst program in the world. But actually, if they stuck to it for 6 to 8 weeks and continued to progressively overload and really, were consistent, they would probably get more gains than what they would like chopping and changing programs on the week. I see it so much. I see it so much.
If you have any advice for me, let me know, because I'm kind of in the online training space too, but like trying to, and that's the thing where I feel like you probably know as well, where it's like you kind of you don't want there to be monotony there, but you're also in that online training space where it's just like you obviously don't want there to be monotony, but you also want them to be enjoying it. You obviously can't push the do this for 2 months, I promise you. Like, so how do you work and how do you operate in that space where it's just like, yes, it may be monotonous, but trust me, trust the process.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it is about just like I call it like sprinkling the stardust on the program. So we've got our main pillars that they're going to be hitting each week. I know they're going to squat. I know they're going to do a hip dominant hamstring exercise. They're going to do a knee dominant hamstring exercise. They're going to do push and pull overhead and horizontal. However, how can I spice it up without taking away from those main things? So whether that's in their preparation, whether that's in their some of their power work, whether we're working with some Olympic derivatives, we're throwing that in there. We're teaching them maybe a new skill in their warm up that's going to lead them into their main session. I think that's probably the best way that I find that I get buy-in from the athletes is if I just I call it the stardust because it is just literally the cherry on the top of the cake of going, right, we're going to add this in for a little bit of spice, and then they're engaged. And obviously you change the prescription within those big pillar lifts, but the goal remains the goal of can we get stronger and can we get more powerful within these main lifts for a longer period of time. That's how I go about it, and it seems to work fairly well for a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean I'm trying to think back to high school and in college how much our programs actually changed. Like if we realistically look at it, like I know high school we ain't changed nothing. Like Monday you show up is squat, Tuesday you show up is power cleans, Wednesday was bench, Thursday front squat, Friday was like your just like stretch and watch film day for the game on Friday nights. So I'm trying to think like the 4 years in college, I don't remember much like changing. So I don't understand how do athletes expect to see progress and see how this program impacts them if every 2 weeks you're changing it up. Like your body like has to have a time to adjust and actually build on something. And I mean, I guess it also comes into play that we're in a society that everything must be fast. You know what I mean? Like we're pumping out content every day. Like people like have access to everything so quickly. Like everything that we do is just like so like news is pumped out to them like on Twitter right away. Like we're in a day and age that everybody wants things so fast. How do you get, like you said, you sprinkle on the stardust, but how do you get athletes to kind of, because this is, I mean, I'm trying to learn from it too. Like how do you get athletes just to slow down and realize that like the base is what you need and is going to help, like the base will be great and it will help you excel even further than anything else.
I think.
Can you speak to the online space and the in-person space too?
Yeah, do you know what? I think the big difference with the online space compared to the in-person space, like you said, when you were in college and you were doing the same thing, which you don't remember changing. Where I'm exactly the same. When I had my college athletes training, like we did a lot of the same stuff for the whole year pretty much, and they were all getting stronger and they're all getting these gains. And I think actually a lot of that comes down to the environment, because you're not just there by yourself in this kind of team setting. You're there as 15 to 20 people all getting after it. Just creates this environment that you'd never really question it. You go after it, you do your main focus, because everyone else is doing it as well. And I think the online space, a lot of people are obviously training by themselves. They probably don't have that external motivation of going, right, doing this again. Do you know what I mean? And that's where their kind of attention span kind of goes. That's maybe where I think the difference is, I think. What was the question again? I forgot the question. I've gone
it was more just like, how do you get them to kind of stick to it? And like, I know, like you said, you sprinkle on the stardust and everything, but there's got to be a way of like that the UX, because obviously the business is doing great. There's got to be a way that you explain it in a way that gets people to just like, hey, like I know some of this stuff will be repeated. And you'll see these things 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 weeks long.
Yeah.
How do you get them to like just like believe?
Yeah, that engagement. Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down, especially with my one-to-one guys, it comes down to the initial conversation and probably me laying out my pedestal with regards to how I approach S&C and kind of, get their input, but also then understand actually this is what we need to be doing. And then obviously prescription with regards to changing certain aspects of that program. It may be the same exercise, but they may be doing it at a different pace, or sets and reps are changed, or they're supersetting it with a certain different exercise, and that may change every 3 weeks. So there's some sort of differential fairly regularly, but the main thing stays the main thing, and we keep that as a sole focus. And then we're testing. And I think if we're not testing, we're guessing, and we've got to have that, because I actually think numbers and them getting stronger and them seeing the results then creates this whole buy-in process of going, it's working.
What does that onboarding process look like for you guys? Because I'm sure that is a huge part of the engagement process for your programming.
Yeah. So the one-to-one is very much now just kind of fill out an application form. And from that application form, they'll get a question at the end, which is, are you prepared to invest X amount of money into your coaching or into your monthly coaching? If the answer is yes, they then go through to kind of a booking page. And the booking page then gives them options to book a call with me.
I love that.
If they said no, they then go straight to like the monthly group coaching program. And that's their option. I've sat on too many calls where then I've told them the price because they haven't answered that question prior, and it's too much money, or they can't afford it, and then you never hear from them again. So I've probably wasted quite a few hours where I've been trying to speak to someone who I'm thinking is going to buy into my program, and then actually it ends up being way too expensive. So I found a more efficient way of speaking to those individuals.
Well, essentially, I guess it wasn't a waste of time, because it led you to this area that makes it more effective and more efficient.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you probably could have just thrown out prices out there, and then you could have people been like, "Oh no, like I definitely can't afford that," without seeing your product and what you've done.
Yeah.
But if you look back at all your coaches that you've had and all the people that you've run into, what has probably been the best piece of advice that's been given to you?
Good question. I think you've got to be, and I want you to reflect on those last 3 months and everything that you have done with those lads for 3 months. And I want you to write it down on paper. And obviously I had the program. I'd written the program, but actually I hadn't reflected on the step-by-step process. So I actually wrote down everything I had done for those last 3 months and why I had done it. So I was actually rationalizing in my head. If they were with me during that session, I'd have been able to tell them straight away. But actually I was then writing it down on paper, and it was so good because I was able to look at that and be really transparent with myself and really honest, and going, actually I did that session, but there was actually no rationale as to why I've done that, and it opened up so many little loopholes. And you got to make yourself vulnerable as a coach to other coaches as well. And that was when I was obviously working in a pro setting. But I remember sending that reflection piece to two of the senior coaches, and then reading it and ripping it apart and saying, why have you done this? Why have you done that? And just creating those conversations. I think you've got to get things wrong, and that's the only way sometimes that you do learn. And that's probably why I'm here now, with regards to, I've got a lot of things wrong, but I've also got a lot of things right. And those things that I've got wrong have actually shaped what I now do. It's probably a bit more of a holistic approach, but that's probably the honest truth. I think like reflection pieces are massive, and I think writing things down is really important.
It's a lost art, something that a lot of people don't do anymore, right? Everybody wants to type it out. Everybody wants to, I'll just take a picture of it, screenshot it, and I'm good.
This is my like little journal, and I write things down in it all the time, and it's a godsend.
I feel like every strength and conditioning coach, or even every coach, has a notebook that they take with them. I remember I saw Jay when we were in Budapest. My man pulled up a whole calendar, then had a notebook. My man still had the computer writing everything out. I have it too. I have 2 notebooks here that I write in and just jot things down so you continuously remember it. And they always said if you write things down, you remember it a lot more. So I think it's super important that piece of advice is huge, right? To be able to reflect on what you've done and what you've, like, the why behind things. And that's awesome. You know, like I ain't got nothing else to say besides that we're getting into our 60-second round. Last time it was 90 seconds. Now it's 60 seconds, and the questions are completely different. So here we go. Are you ready for it, Harry?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, 60 seconds on the clock. Favorite sport?
Rugby.
Dream vacation spot?
Fiji.
Guilty pleasure food?
Carrot cake.
Best concert attended?
I actually went to Glastonbury. So Glastonbury, I know it's a festival, but Glastonbury.
Favorite movie genre?
Comedy.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Or early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Dream car?
Aston Martin.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Celebrity crush?
Dua Lipa.
Would you prefer to know any language in the world fluently, or would you prefer to be able to play an instrument masterfully?
Language.
And there it is. That is the end. 60 seconds. Hit it. Harry, we appreciate you being here with us today, man. And thank you for all the knowledge that you came on and dropped. All our followers, remember, hit that like, subscribe, comment button down below so we can continue to bring on cool guests like my boy Harry here. If you got the opportunity, check out Train Wright Performance, especially if you're in that rugby sector, right? I don't know much about rugby, so I wouldn't even try to maybe I'll try to learn something to try to coach you, but most of the time I'm just going to send you over to Harry. All right. So for all the people out there that do rugby, look up Train Wright Performance. And Harry, again, thank you for being here with us today.
Cheers, guys. Appreciate it. Been great chatting.
And we're out.
Yeah.